gentlemen of the press, permit me to wish you a happy new year, rather belatedly. I honestly look forward to an eventful 2023, not only in the political front, but also in the social and economic fronts of our beleaguered state. You will recall that elected chairmen and councillors of the 18 local government councils of Edo State completed their tenure in office since 2020. However, since then, the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, has refused, neglected to conduct an election to elect other officials for these councils. Rather, he proceeded first by handing over the control and management of these councils to civil servants, tagged Head of Local Government Administration, Olga, and the head reigns in office for almost a year and a half. Thereafter, there was a series of scheduling and postponement of elections till recently, when the governor purportedly sent some names of persons to group accolades he unabashedly referred to as Edo State House of Assembly, parading such persons as liaison officers to administer these local government councils. Again, this is an act of illegality that must not be allowed to stand. Accordingly, I proceed to examine and expose the unconstitutionality and illegality of the proposed contraption by whichever nomenclature is proposed by the governor. Legal issues arising. Having regards to the clear and unambiguous provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and the subsisting judgment of the Supreme Court, it is abundantly clear that the governor's action, which foisted these nominees as the epitome of administration in these councils, is patently unconstitutional and illegal. This is because Section 7(1) of 1999 Constitution as amended provides as follows. The system of local government administration by democratically elected local government councils is under the Constitution guaranteed. Accordingly, the government of every state shall, subject to Section 8 of this Constitution, ensure their existence under a law which provides for the establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of such councils. Accordingly, Section 1 sub 2 of the extant Constitution provides as follows. The Federal Republic of Nigeria shall not be governed, nor shall any person or group of persons take control of government of Nigeria or any part thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. Reasoning for the above, caretaker committees are an aberration to the extant Constitution. Caretaker committees offend Section 1(2) of the extant Constitution, wherein state governors take control of local government councils by appointing chairmen for the local government councils without regards to constitutional provisions. In the same vein, Section 1(3) of the extant Constitution provides that if any other law is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution shall prevail, and that other laws shall, to the extent of its inconsistency be void. Any law made by any state of House of Assembly in Nigeria that gives power to caretaker committees to administer local government councils is voided because the law is inconsistent with the provisions of the extant Constitution, and the Constitution shall prevail. Furthermore, the 1976 local government reform also defines local government as government at the local level, which is exercised through representative councils constituted by law to implement and exercise substantial control over local affairs, including staffing, institutional and financial powers, to initiate and direct the provisions of services, and to determine and implement projects, so as to implement the activities of the state and federal government in their areas, and ensure through devolution of these functions to these councils and through the active participation of the people and their traditional rulers. Clearly, the provision is very direct and explicit. It does not require the intrinsic interpretative skills to decipher the legislative intent behind these laws. Therefore, it is clear that local government administration can only be done under the control and management of democratically elected officials, not selected or appointed officials. Secondly, this section also imposes on the state government, in this case, both the executive and legislative arm of the government, to enact a law that must specifically address the issue of establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of the local government councils. Furthermore, these obligations are couched in imperative terms, shall, and as it has been resolved in plethora of judicial authority, once a preposition shall is used in any legislation, it imposes a mandatory duty on the officer or institution, and it equally robs other officers or institution of any discretion in that matter. See Amadi versus NNPC 2010 Nigerian Weekly Law Report, Part 6774 at 76 to 97. Again, also see Amadi versus Acho 2008. These are cases, decided cases by the Supreme Court. Accordingly, there are two layers of violations of the Constitution by a governor that can be defined hereunder. Firstly, the deliberate and mischievous appointment and selection of non-democratically elected persons to man the affairs of local government in the country. Secondly, the refusal or neglect by the government to enact a law or law governing elections and governors. It is submitted, therefore, that these infractions are justiciable, meaning you can go to court and challenge it, and are grounds for the impeachment of a governor pursuant to Section 188 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. More specifically, on the appointment of caretaker committees, the Supreme Court emphatically held in the suit filed by former chairmen and councillors of the local government councils in Ekiti that the governor, Kayode Fayemi, as he then was, lacked the constitutional powers to dissolve democratically elected chairmen and councillors. The Apex Court equally held that it was unconstitutional for the governor and the State House of Assembly to attempt to appoint persons to replace these democratically elected officers of the council. Similarly, the Supreme Court also intervened in a similar imbroglio in Oyo State when the current governor, Seyi Makinde, purportedly dissolved democratically elected council chairmen in Oyo State and purportedly replaced them with caretaker committee. Clearly, the issue of whether it is illegal or constitutional to appoint caretaker or select persons not elected through a democratic means at the local government level has long been settled. Now, the Edo State saga. Whereas Governor Obaseki now purports to appoint some persons as administrators of the local government councils, there are specific pending High Court judgments that prevents him from doing so. Specifically, in suit number B/2/OS/2013, Tony Abumere versus the governor of Edo State and two others, the court, presided over by Justice T. Komolafe Wisin, held that by virtue of the provisions of Section 7, Sub 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and more specifically, Section 10(4) of the Edo State Local Government Amendment Law of 2000, the governor lacked the power to handpick and recommend persons not democratically elected for appointment as members of a local government transition committee. Accordingly, in the light of the valid and subsisting judgment of the Supreme Court, which has resolved these issues, and more importantly, the judgment of the High Court referenced above, in which the governor and the Edo State House of Assembly were named parties, the governor has no right whatsoever to disobey this judgment by purporting to handpick, nominate, or recommend the persons he purportedly appoints as members of the caretaker committees or liaison officers in the 18 local government council in Edo State. More fundamentally, the governor's move amounts to contempt and it is punishable accordingly. It is expected that the Attorney General and the Commissioner for Justice of the state will do the needful and advise the governor accordingly. This is because it is the Attorney General that would be docked for contempt if the chiefs are down. And in view of the governor's immunity, however, same cannot be said of the governor's contraction called the House of Assembly, meaning they can be arrested for contempt and charged and imprisoned, which is the House of Assembly and the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. If they lend themselves, as they have always done, to the disobedience of this court judgment by accepting the names of such persons and purportedly clearing and approving them for appointment, as they have already purportedly done. Now, what is the standard play script in Edo State? Gentlemen of the press, since assumption of office by Mr. Godwin Obaseki on November 12, 2016, the generic standard governance style has been defined by consistent push to suppress and undermine the principles and values of democratic government. He has continued to lend himself to the vainglory surge of raw instinct and impulses, primarily driven by self-interest and self-preservation. The dictatorial politics of the governor is sharply contradictory and incongruous with the rebooted new world order anchored on democratization of almost all aspects of life. However, how else can an intelligent natural analyst rationalize the embarrassment of running a democratic governance without legitimate legislatures? How else? How can an Edo State citizen have a feeling of freedom and liberty in a state where the judiciary has been weakened and manacled? How can citizens of a state be free in an environment where governor announced to the world that security operatives have planned for a part of the capital city, only to wake up in the morning to see bulldozers destroying houses of an entire district under the protection of military tanks? The list of democratic aberrations committed by the steel-hearted governor is endless. Let me use this opportunity to again drive the point home that the State House of Assembly saga, the nocturnal swearing in of only 8 members elected on the 17th of June 2019, the attack on members elect at Golden Tulip Hotel on the 18th of June 2019, and the blocking of proceedings of the various court cases were all carefully planned and scrupulously executed to pave way for the emergence of a petty dictator. The judiciary was also attacked by the strategy, though differently. However, the result is about the same. As of today, no judge in Edo State judiciary will be courageous enough to rule against the governor. Governor Godwin Obaseki strongly dreaded the possibility of members of the House of Assembly putting him in the spot for interrogation. His hubristic attitude resents the idea of members firing sharp criticisms against him on the floor of the House, or issuing him ultimatums and inviting him to account for the resources of the state. It will interest members of the public that his co-conspirators in the contraption called House of Assembly do not even enjoy the formalities of having proposals presented on the floor of the House. Most of the actions and proposals of government come to their knowledge as fait accompli. It can never be stressed enough that more than ever, all citizens of Edo State must work together to prevent further encroachment of dictatorial politics into the high-level freedom and democratic culture inherited by the governor. Edo people are tired of making national news headlines for the wrong reasons. We want Edo government to be celebrated nationally for delivering on electoral promises, namely the transformation of Edo State to a smart industrial hub in the South-South. Where are the industries and the 3 industrial parks? Nigerians will recall that Governor Godwin Obaseki went to rooftop severally to pontificate on the imperative of delivering on Benin River, which he said would give rise to Edo economic explosion if anchored. As his priority project, the first 3 years of his tenure was devoted to it with astronomical expenditure, committed to the World Economic Capital in search of a capable investor. Another major electoral promise was agripreneur program, which Obaseki said was going to transform farming to pure business across the agricultural value chain. To date, the 200,000 jobs expected to be generated in the agricultural sector has remained a mirage. Governor Godwin Obaseki should step up delivering legacy projects of his government rather than concentrating on peripheral challenges that development partners and NGOs could effectively deliver. Though people are grumbling and murmuring about great promises, but the governor only delivers mere tokens. But the people must do more than whispering complaints and disappointment, as we must hold government accountable for their actions and inactions. More significantly, we stand up to stop the trend of turning democracy to dictatorship in our state. Rather than be cowed into submission, we must be spurred by unbendingly resisting the allures of political strongman. Democracy is alien to leadership philosophy of a strongman. Rather, democracy is a beautiful system anchored on the will of the people, and upon this anvil, our faith and confidence shall not waver.